The Octonauts explore the great big ocean. It was a busy day under the cold Arctic when Captain Barnacle's bear was doing his laundry. Tweak Bunny was clearing ice in the Gup D. Dashy Dog was uploading the Octopod software. Peso Penguin was practicing his bandaging. Quasi Kitten was working on his cat foo. Professor Inkling Octopus was leading a game. Shellington Sea Otter was researching with Tunip the Vegimal, who had just sounded the octo alert. Sliding through chutes and climbing down ladders, the rest of the Octonauts hurried down to the launch bay. There they found Tunip anxiously pointing to the large map on the screen. "Break-a-dick-a-wook," he chirped sadly. "We were studying underwater biomes," Shellington explained. "Every creature was a home, a special place called a habitat that provides shelter and food. Tunip is upset because he doesn't know which habitat Vegimals belong to." "Where did the Vegimals come from?" Peso asked. "That's a good question," Shellington said, as he began to read from his journal. "One day, while doing research outside, I noticed some strange shapes in the side of the octopod. They looked like giant fish eggs, but unlike any I'd seen before. It was too dangerous to leave them outside, so I brought them into my lab. After a few days, the eggs hatched, and that's how I discovered the Vegimals." "I don't know where the eggs came from or how long they've been attached to our ship. They could be from anywhere in the ocean." Captain Barnacles declared, "Octonauts, our mission is to visit the different habitats of the ocean and find where Vegimals come from. Prepare the gups." The team worked together to pack their tools and equipment, while the Vegimals made sure there were plenty of their favorite cupcakes to eat for the long trip ahead. One by one, the gups launched from the octopod. First, the Octonauts visited the bustling open ocean. Amongst the waves, they met wandering sunfish, migrating whales, and boisterous giant squid. Tunip was impressed that some creatures lived their entire lives on the move. On the rocky beach, the Octonauts were invited to a tide pool party. Tunip discovered that many creatures live in shells. Unfortunately, they were too small to be Vegimal homes. In the seagrass meadows, the Octonauts helped the giant manatee farmers with their harvest. Shellington discovered many baby animals in the nursery, but none of them were Vegimals. When the Octonauts reached the sunny coral reef, they were dazzled by the bright colors. Friendly sea slugs perched on giant sponges greeted them at every turn. But wherever they looked, every burrow and nook was already home to a creature. There wasn't any room left for the Vegimals. In the murky swamp, the Octonauts nervously drifted past grinning alligators and curious snakes. Under the water, they discovered a parade. The crew danced through the bayou while the Vegimals collected beads as souvenirs. Tired out from the merrymaking, Tunip decided they should continue their search. After a long descent, the Octonauts reached the bottom of the ocean to visit the Deep Sea Research Lab. The crew inspected the camera network, but they didn't see any vegimals, only the flickering lights of bioluminescent jellyfish. Tunip gazed out at the smoky hydrothermal vents and felt like he was on a different planet. He wondered if he'd ever find his own habitat. Ooh. When the Octonauts finally arrived at the kelp forest, Tunip's eyes widened as he clapped his fins together in delight. Everywhere he looked, he was surrounded by kelp, his favorite type of seaweed. There aren't any other vegimals here, Shellington observed, but it appears to be a suitable habitat for them. Vegimals do love kelp. The Vegimals quickly set up camp kitchen and began baking away. They made sweet chocolate kelp cakes, healthy broccoli kelp cakes, even fancy pineapple upside-down kelp cakes. When it was time to leave, Shellington called out, "Tunip, are you ready to go?" But the distracted Vegimals were too busy to respond. "Looks like they want to stay here," Captain Barnacle said sadly. "I guess our search is over, and we should head home to the Octopod." The Octonauts waved farewell as they departed in their gups, while the Vegimals continued to work in fervor. So much kelp, so many cakes to bake. The Vegimals rolled and mixed and stirred for days until mountains of kelp cakes towered all around them. While the baking was done, Tunip excitedly ran through the forest in search of the Octonauts. He couldn't wait to share these treats. Not finding a single crew member, Tunip finally remembered they had all gone back to the Octopod. There was no one left to enjoy the kelp cakes. Missing their friends, the gloomy Vegimals thought of all the fun times they had together and felt sad. The Vegimals didn't know where the Octopod could be, but they all agreed they had to try to find it. With a long, difficult journey ahead of them, they quickly packed up their mobile kitchen. Plates were stacked and pots were stowed. The determined group left the forest in a jumble of carts spilling with cakes. They traveled back to all the different habitats they visited, from the busy open ocean to the deep sea floor. As days passed, the Vegimals grew tired and started to give up hope of ever finding the Octonauts, until one morning they heard a familiar sound. Vroom! The Octopod! The Vegimals cheered as it landed beside them into a burst of bubbles. The octohatch promptly opened, and the Octonauts swam out to reunite with their friends. "We missed you all so much," Captain Barnacle said as he gave Tunip a big bear hug. "We returned to the kelp forest to visit, but you weren't there. Luckily, we found a trail of delicious clues," Dashy added. Each Octonaut held up their favorite type of cake. "Yarg! How did I get licorice again?" "The Octopod hasn't been the same without you," Barnacles addressed the Vegimals. "Would you come join us on board?" Cheep-a-choo, Turnip quickly replied. The crew all turned expectantly to Shellington, who explained with a grin, "That's Vegimalese for yes." Back on board the ship, the Octonauts gathered in the garden pod to enjoy a picnic. "Tunip, if you like, we can keep looking for your original habitat," Shellington said in between mouthfuls of kelp cake. "There's so much ocean we've yet to explore." Tunip looked around at his caring friends and cheerfully shook his head. He knew there was no better place for a Vegimal to belong than right here on the Octopod. The end. Good night.